talking of the idea of the chain of transmission of Torah from Moses at Sinai until today, actually. It has to come with a certain amount of what we call in Hebrew, modern Hebrew, emunat chachamim, the belief in some kind of power or some kind of special attributes that the chachamim have. The Chazon Ish writes in an answer to a question of a young scholar, how he can achieve this, what is called Emunat Chachamim, belief in the sages. He said Emunat Chachamim has to do with belief in scholarship through a living person. The Gemara tells us in Masechet Shabbat, Ma'aseh b'nochri echad sheba lifnei Shammai. There was once a Gentile that came to Shammai and asked him, how many Torahs do you have? And Shammai said 2, the written and the oral. So he said, in the written one I believe you, but in the oral Torah I don't believe you. But I would like to become Jewish, to convert, in order so that I can learn the written Torah. In those days of the Mishnah, before the Bible became a world book, a top bestseller, in order to learn the Bible in its original way, it seems from here one had to convert first. So Shammai shouted at him and expelled him, sent him out from his house. So he came to Hillel and said the same thing, and Hillel converted him. The first day he taught him Aleph, Beis, Gimel, Dalet. The next day he did the reverse, Dalet, Gimel, Beis, Aleph. He said, just a minute, yesterday he told me Aleph, Beis, Gimel, Dalet. So why are you reverting it today? So Hillel said to him, Lav alei didi kasamchet. What makes you think that I taught you the correct thing yesterday? Because you relied on me. So trust me that if I teach you today this way, I know what I'm doing. In other words, even a simple thing as the order of the alphabet, we don't really have a sure 100% guarantee that it's the right thing, the right way of order of the alphabet, had we not had a teacher teaching us. So we see, and this is the lesson of Hillel, and that's what he did. When he converted him, he showed him that the written Torah cannot be taught without guidance of the sages. And that's the whole idea of the oral Torah. The oral Torah is the guidance of the sages how to understand the written Torah. More than this, the sages are not only the carriers of the tradition of their oral law, more than that, and we'll explain this now. There's a law in the Torah which is Malkut. Malkut means lashes. In the Torah it says that we give 40 lashes when someone is liable to that punishment. And our sages say that 40 isn't 40, but rather 39. 40 missing one, minus one. Simply speaking, when you read the Torah, the verse itself in the Torah, in the written law, it says 40. But we, the sages, had a tradition to explain the Torah in that way. Meaning, the Maharal explains this, HaChachamim em etzem HaTorah. The Talmidei Chachamim, the Rabbanim, who explained the Torah, or the Torah itself, had they not been considered that way, they couldn't come and explain a word 40 to mean 39. And therefore, one can explain the Rambam. The Rambam says, in Ilchot Tshuva, He said, no. The Rambam says in L'chot Tshuva, if someone says that the Torah is not from Hashem, even on one word, and he thinks that Moshe Rabbeinu himself invented it, he has, actually it's as if he denied the whole Torah. And even if someone denies the Torah Sheba'al Peh, is also considered someone who denied the whole Torah. And if someone says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu changed the mitzvah or cancelled the mitzvah, let's say the Torah says you should keep a certain mitzvah, put on tefillin every day, wear tzitzis, eat matzah on Pesach, eat and sleep in the sukkah on Sukkot, and someone says no, I explain it differently, the Torah has changed, there's a new Torah. Even if he says that new Torah is from Hashem, but he says, I say there's new Torah. Like, and the Rambam mentions the Notzrim, the Christians, Hagarim, the Muslims. One of those is Kofer B'Torah. So, when we say Kfirah B'Torah, denial of the Torah, has in it a few things. Has in it denying the Torah itself, the written and oral. Denying the chain of rabbis, chain of transmitters is also. And that's why they're also considered deniers of the Torah. How do we know this? There is a pasuk in the Torah. A pasuk in the Torah says, in Dvorim Yud Zayin Yud, Deuteronomy 17 verse 10, you should follow the Torah taught to you by the shoftim of that time, the judges of that time. So, now, it says in the Gemara, an interesting thing in Eruvin, Eilu ve'eilu divrei Elokim chayim. On two opinions in the Torah, in the Halacha, they are both the words of Hashem. And the Ritva brings the questions of the French rabbis. How can you have both permitted and forbidden, both from Hashem on one thing? Yeah? And the Ritva explains, when Moshe Rabbeinu went to accept the Torah at Mount Sinai, he was given 49 ways for forbidding everything, 49 ways of permitting. When he asked Hashem, Hashem said that will be in the hands of the Chachmei Yisrael b'chol dor vador. Certain things, the sages of every generation will have the final word, the final decision of what to do. That's what he says. And the Shloh HaKodesh, Rabbi Yeshaya Horovitz, brings this answer of the French rabbis and says like this: this is very hard or difficult to comprehend in a rational way. And therefore he says that this is a Kabbalistic thing, that we don't rationally understand how both things can be with the word of Hashem. And the Marshal, Rabbi Shlomo Luria, explains the Kabbalistic rationale. And he says, since every neshama of a Jew was at Mount Sinai, and each one accepted the Torah in his way, his neshama kind of thing, all the people see the voices. Seeing these voices meant the opinions that were channeled to each person in a different way, according to his ability of comprehension and according to his soul's level, and that's his kind of Kabbalistic, mystical rationale. That means the personal perspective of that Chochom that accepted the Torah. So he says this is what the Chazon Ish says. Very interesting. Ashgochoso Yisborach, he says, the Chazon Ish writes in the letter also, the Hashem Yisborach, divine providence, in every generation put a select few of people to give out the halachic and legal aspects of the Torah for every generation, and they go deep into the halacha, and at that moment they're like angels that as if accept the Torah again each time. So that is the point of the Chazon Ish, that the person who reaches that high level of knowledge of Torah, his mind becomes one with the mind of the Torah itself. That is the idea. And therefore, it is so important to understand what the Rambam writes about in his introduction. The Rambam, in his introduction to his 14 volumes of the Halacha, the Yad HaChazaka, writes, all the mitzvot that were given to Moshe at Sinai were given also with their explanations. And then he brings the pasuk and explains it. And he says, that's why it is called Torah Sheba'al Peh. Because it wasn't written in the Torah, but Moshe Rabbeinu taught it to the 70 elders. And Elazar and Pinchas and Joshua all accepted it from Moshe. And Yeshua was the disciple of Moshe, received the whole oral law also. And many elders received it again from Yeshua. And so forth and so on, till Shmuel HaNavi and David, who learned by Shmuel, and so forth and so on, till Eliyahu HaNavi from Echiyah Shiloni, and it goes on and on and on, through all the biblical figures, but not all the biblical, to a certain line of biblical figures, until it comes to Ezra. And the Beth Din of Ezra were called the men of the Great Assembly. And who were the men of the Great Assembly? Some of them are the prophets of Chagai, Zechariah, and Malachi, the last prophets. Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah, Nehemiah, Ben Chachaliah, Mordechai HaTzadik from the Purim story, and many other sages at that time. Altogether 120 sages. The men of the Great Assembly numbered 120. The last of them was Shimon HaTzadik, but he was included in that number of 120. And he was the Kohen Gadol after Ezra. Ezra was also a Kohen. And he taught the Torah Sheba'al Peh to Antignos of Socho, and that's already in the Mishnah, Pirkei Avot. And so on and so forth. It's all the names, I won't go into it, till Hillel and Shammai and everyone. And they had 5, and Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai was a Talmid of Hillel HaZokein, and he had 5, and Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai had 5 disciples, Rab Lezer, Rabbi Shua, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Shimon, Rab Lozo. Rabbi Akiva learned by Rab Lozo.
Which one here?
Sorry?
Is there a call?
Rabbi?
Okay.
And so on and so forth. It comes until Rabbeinu HaKodesh, Rabbi Yehuda HaNossi, who wrote the Mishnah. Yeah? And the Rambam brings the list of all the names and how the Mishnah was written also, he writes here. How was the Mishnah written? He says like this. Rabbeinu HaKadosh, who is Rabbi Yehuda HaNossi, wrote the Mishnah. And from Moshe Rabbeinu until Rabbi Yehuda HaNossi, there was nothing written from the Torah. There was Torah, the Tanakh, and then everything was oral. And every generation, the Rosh Beis Din, or Novi of that generation, did write for himself some of the sayings that he had from his teachers, but he would teach it all off by heart. And those people that learned from the teacher off by heart would sometimes write some of the things from what he heard, or some of the new halachos that he learned. And that was the way until Rabbeinu HaKodesh. What did Rabbeinu HaKodesh do? He collected from all the sayings and halachos that people heard, and from Moshe Rabbeinu's times until his times, and authored the Mishnah from that. And the Mishnah itself was again open for all to learn from. And why did Rabbeinu HaKadosh write and not leave things the way they were till then? Because at that time, it was already the time of the Roman Empire, after the Churban, the destruction of the temple, and he saw the Roman Empire gaining strength and spreading out in the world and suppressing the Jewish people and the Jewish Torah. And the Jews started to be a nation dispersed all over the world, and therefore he wanted to unify and write one book that everyone could hold in his hands and can learn off by heart in order he shouldn't forget. And then he brings the names of the Beis Din of Rabbi Yehuda HaNossi and his disciples, and then so forth and so on, until those that wrote the Tosefta, which is also Tanaitic literature but not part of the Mishnah, and then the Yerushalmi written by, redacted by Rabbi Yochanan, and then the Bavli, until Rav Ashi. And then he lists, the Rambam makes a list of 40 names from the last Amorah, the one who edited the Talmud, until Moshe Rabbeinu, 40 people, 40 generations. All these, says the Rambam, were the greatest people of their generations. But there were many others in every generation, thousands and tens of thousands with them. And then he explains why there are two Gemaras, Bavli and Yerushalmi, but both of them are ways of explaining the Mishnah. And then there were also a few other books or works written in those times, like Sifri, Sifra, and Toseftot. And then he explains that amongst all these books and kind of thing, Torah Sheba'al Peh, the oral law, there are many things actually reenacted or enacted as decrees by our sages in every generation in order to create a fence around the Torah. And some of them were only customs or regulations that were made in every generation in a sense, in a special way, not as a fence around the Torah, but separate things. And those also should be kept as Torah Sheba'al Peh. And says the Rambam, Nimtza Rabbina v'Rav Ashi, Sof Gdolei Chachmei Yisrael Amatikim Torah Sheba'al Peh. The end of the sages writing the oral law was Rabbina and Rav Ashi. And everything they wrote was totally accepted by all the Jews all over the world. But after that Beis Din of Rav Ashi that wrote the Gemara, then the Jewish people were really dispersed all over the world, and there were all sorts of problems amongst communities because they didn't really have one unified new thing to learn from, so they all had to rely on the Gemara. And the Jews didn't learn Torah anymore as they did in those days for the tens of thousands and dozens of thousands of Jews that learned in yeshivas until then. However, how did they learn Torah from them? Because the Rambam is explaining. In the time of the Gemara, till the end of the Gemara, most of the Torah scholarship was centralized. It was in Babylonia and in north of Israel, in Galilee. Tiberias, in that area. But now, after the end of the Talmudic period, which is about 1,500 years ago, at that time we're talking already of a situation of Jews being dispersed in many, many communities and countries all over the world, and then they have to use the text of the Gemara and the Mishnah in order to learn the way of how to be a proper Jew. And every Beis Din, from after that period of the Gemara, in every country, that makes enactments or new customs is only binding for that place. So what the Rambam is trying to say is, everything in the Talmud is binding for the whole Jewish people, but from the Talmud onwards, it's not binding for all communities. Every community has a Beis Din. The Beis Din can enact or regulate or tell people how to behave according to the Torah in that community, but it's not binding for other communities. Ve'yois beis din shloisem din yichidim, and those batei din, the communal ones, as the Rambam puts it, were not anymore part of the real beis din of 71 that already didn't exist from before, from the Mishnah times already stopped. That means even the time of the Gemara didn't exist anymore. לפיכך אין כופין על שם דינה זו לנהוג כמדינה אחרת. You cannot enforce your halacha on someone living in a different community. Only on your own community. What we call in modern Hebrew, Moed Asre. There's the Rav of that Kehillah. And you can't expect a beis din of one country to reenact something that was enacted by a different beis din, even in the same country. V'chein, this is very important, this point Rambam makes. Im lomad echad ma'gaonim. If one of the Gaonites, and the Rambam is using the term Gaonites, why? From after the period of the Talmud, there was Rabbanan Tzvuroi, but the Rambam calls it the Gaonic period, which is the next 500 years, till 1,000 years ago, the time of the Gaonim. But if one of the Gaonim learned something in the Gemara in a certain way, and a beis din comes later and says, we do not see eye to eye what this Gaon learned, we think it in a different way, you don't have to listen to the first Gaon. You can make your own thing up. But these things, this is only with regard to things that were renewed or enacted from new after the period of the Gemara. However, the things written in the Gemara, in the Bavli, it's binding for every Jew. And the beis din in each country can enforce the people to follow those halachas or enactments or customs mentioned in the Gemara. Everything written in the Gemara was accepted by the whole of Am Yisrael. That's what he says. And that, what is written in the Gemara, is part of the Torah Sheba'al Peh that goes back to Moshe Rabbeinu. That's what the Rambam says. V'kol ha'chachomim, all the sages, she'amdu achar chibur ha'Gemara, that existed after the final signing of the Gemara, and learned properly in the Gemara very well, considered great Talmidei Chachamim, are called Geonim. And all those Geonim that lived in Eretz Israel, in Shinar is Babylonia, or Mesopotamia, Sfarad, Spain, Tzofat, France, Lamdu Derech HaGemara. Their learning comes from the Gemara, not from some other place. V'hotziu lo talumotav, and explained, and everything they learned was from the Gemara. But other places, now he talks about the language of the Gemara, which is Lashon Arami, the Aramaic language of the Gemara, how we can sometimes word certain words we don't understand so well. And that's why sometimes even something written in the Gemara wasn't clarified in the same way to all the Gaonim in every place. And therefore many people would send their questions to the Gaonim to explain certain difficulties in the Gemara because of the language barrier. And those literary works based on those questions are those chiburim written by the Gaonites that wrote very, very many chiburim. That's what the Rambam writes. We don't have all of them. They wrote many things. And that's Melechet Hashem that Goyim Israel did after the time of the Gemara. Until his time, the Rambam brings his date. His date is Shana Shminis Achamer Velef Lechum Nabais 4,937. 4,937. Where are we today? 5,777. So how long ago is this? When the Rambam's writing? Anyone good at math here?
600 and something.
No, a bit more. A lot more. If I say, let's take off the 4,000. This is it's 4,937. You can write it down. 4,937. And today we are 5,777. So how many years ago was the Rambam
800.
writing this? About 800 something, exactly. Okay. However, says the Rambam, ובזמן הזה, today, תקפו הצרות יתרות. There's so many tzoras, so many problems. And he's referring to the time when you had to probably flee. He mentions it later. Flee from Spain because of the Almohadin. There was all sorts of problems there with the Muslims and the Christians and fighting, and the Jews were always the scapegoats. And the family of the Rambam had to escape to North Africa, and that's how he later on arrived in Egypt. But and the time problems actually caused great oppression and caused the loss of Jewish scholarship, and therefore all those commentaries and laws and responses written by the Gaonim are difficult to understand today. Very few understand even those books. And even more so the Gemara itself and the Yerushalmi, Sifro Sifri Tesefte. To understand all that, you need a very, very broad mind and a very clever soul. Dat Rechava Nefesh Chachama. Zman Aruch, lots of patience and lots of time. And maybe later one can know the right way in what's permitted and what's forbidden, and all the dinim. And therefore, I took up this job, me, Moshe ben Maimon, the Sfaradi from Spain, and I relied on Hashem, and went through all these forum of the Gaonites, and the Gemara, and the Sifro, and the Sifri, and the Tosefta. And it seems from his introduction that also the Yerushalmi, because he mentions the Yerushalmi before. And decided to rewrite everything in a clear language, in a short, decisive way, so anyone can learn the Torah Sheba'al Peh in a very orderly fashion, without questions and answers, but just as halachic decisions. That's the Rambam. Very, very characteristic of the Rambam. It's probably the only Torah source written in a unified language. It's all the same language. There's no questions and answers. It's all written as a halachic book with no opinions, but one opinion. It doesn't bring any few opinions, only one opinion. Dvorim, burim, clear things. Al pi hamishpat asher yisbarem kol elech burim. But all based upon all these books I mentioned before. Which books? From the Mishnah till today. And my mission is that all these halachos will be open and transparent to big and small in every mitzvah. Klal shel davar. The rule of the thing is, you won't need any book besides my book. This book will be the only book you'll need, if you want to use in order to know how to act as a Jew. You can learn Tanakh, says the Rambam. That's why I called it Mishneh Torah. Mishneh Torah, second to the Torah, because you can read the Tanakh and then my book, and you'll know how to act. And he divided it according to, in a very rational, orderly fashion, to halachot and prakim, and every parak, every chapter is divided again into paragraphs, and you can learn it all off by heart. That's it. This is the Akdama of the Rambam, and then he goes ahead and writes his book. His introduction to the Mishnah is a bit more at length, but he begins with Yesodei Torah. So it's talking of halachot. He says it's all halachot, but the beginning of the book is Yesodei Torah. What's Yesodei Torah? Let's just start reading the first word. And it seems that in order to keep the mitzvahs, the first mitzvah is to believe in Hashem. Yesod HaYesodot, the foundation of all foundations. Va'amud HaChochmot, and the pillar of all scholarship is Leida, is to know sheyesh Shem Motzuishim, that there is Hashem. Mamtzi Kol Nimtzo, the inventor of all inventions, and everything in this world, heaven and earth, and in between, is all stems from the truth of the existence of Hashem. That's all. That's the first halacha in Mishnah Torah L'Rambam. So then it goes through all the laws, of belief in Hashem, and the mitzvah to love Hashem, and then what the heavenly galaxy is and all that, and the world, what's the world made of, and then the laws of Kiddush Hashem, that has obviously bearings to belief in Hashem. Then Kiddush Hashem means to sanctify Hashem's name, and in what case you are obligated or not obligated to even put yourself in danger for that purpose. And that's all the halachos of Yehuda Torah. And then also the laws of treating the name of Hashem with respect. And what are the names of Hashem? Then there are laws of prophecy. Who's a prophet, who's not a prophet, and why we believe in Moshe Rabbeinu. And it looks like it's all. And then the last 10th chapter of Yehuda Torah, Foundations of Torah, is how we check, how we test a Novi. Who's a true Novi, who isn't a true Novi. This is the beginning of the Rambam. Why did the Rambam put this in the beginning? Because in a sense, this is the main platform that upon this you can build all the halacha. Because when we talk of halacha, what's the source of halacha? It's the Torah, Tanakh. But if you say that besides the mitzvahs of the Torah, Taryag mitzvahs, there are more mitzvahs, there's maybe a Novi says something, maybe a Novi will come today and say there's no mitzvah this, there is a mitzvah this. So we have to also classify what actually defines source of the Torah, source of what Hashem wants from us. But the next halachas in the Rambam, the next part, is maybe even more of a wonder why the Rambam puts it here. It's Deos, the laws of good character traits. First of all, that's not halacha. Although some things that have to do with character traits have to do with halacha. And here I'd like to explain something that I heard from my Mashgiach Rav Wolbe Zatzal. And he used to say why the Rambam put in the beginning of his book of halacha the laws of how to be a mensch, how to behave. Because Hashem gave mitzvahs to people, human beings, not animals. And how do we know who's a human being? You have to know how to behave as a human being. So the number one thing is like a pyramid. First, you are a human being. Upon that you can build your Yiddishkeit. And upon that build the higher levels. But if the foundation isn't wide enough, then everything you build might fall down. So the Rambam talks about midas, how not to be a bad-tempered person, how not to be too lustful, how to be humble, how not to run after money, and so forth and so on. And the fourth halacha, to be midobeinu, is to be a bit of a, in the middle of the road, mediocre in these things. Yeah? And if you are very, very extreme in one thing, it's also wrong. And then to have mercy, and so on and so forth. So these aren't really halachas, but you can't fulfill, as Rasul Salanta said, you can't fulfill the mitzvahs if you don't take into account your character traits too. With this I will finish today, and I want to thank you very much for being here, and hope that this will help us all aspire to higher levels and reach those levels of fulfilling the Rambam's halachic introduction of how to keep all the mitzvahs through good midas, also good character trait. Thank you very much.